Another week has gone past and we now have a release date. Time for the Age of 8th discussion. What do you mean the Necron rules aren't out yet? Come on GW, what's going on? Yes, well, by the time this video goes up, I'm sure there will be. Typical. Nick speaking, and welcome to this video. Alright, yes, another week has gone past. We finally have a release date for the new edition of Warhammer 40k 8th edition, new hammer, whatever you want to call it, and it's time for some more discussion. Now, first of all, let's have a look at the release date. June 17th, that's just under 3 weeks, yay! I'm going to need some more cash. So yeah, the 3rd of June is when we can pre-order our goodies, and then we can get hold of them on the 17th of June. I was expecting just a 1 week pre-order, but it's going to be, what, 2 weeks? Fair enough. So yeah, 17th of June. Now, we've already discussed this in obviously the previous videos, but they announced a while ago that the core rules would be free. And it seems like there will be some form of free rules. I don't think we're going to get the whole rulebook free, basically. It seems like there's going to be a main rulebook, 280 pages, not a small rulebook. It's going to have all the fluff, all the new stories in there, etc. And yeah, some speculate that you might even have the Gathering Storm books in that book. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but it's very interesting. And effectively, the core rules that are going to be free are really just going to be for beginners. If you want to play this game properly, like we do, like the veterans do, you're going to have to spend down and buy that big rule book. Now, there is a starter kit which has the big rulebook in, and obviously we've got the new stuff in there as well, the new Death Guard models and the new Primaris Marine models, and you get a few dice and stuff in there, etc. And then of course running alongside that there's 5 faction books. Now, they've been upfront and open about this. I don't know how many people are noting it, but these 5 faction books are basically there so that every single person who has every single model can start playing the game from day one. Now, what they have indicated is in the future we are actually going to get individual army books. So be careful when you're buying these, because you know, unless you're going to planning on playing the army straight away, then you might want to just hang off until you get a proper codex. But it's quite interesting. Now, the prices for these, not officially been announced, but we do know what the prices are just from blog posts, etc. It's going to be £35 for the main rulebook, it's going to be £95 for the starter set, and it's going to be £15 each for the little army books, codexes, whatever they're calling them. So yeah, £15 for the books sounds quite good. Now, it depends on how many you need, I suppose, but what I can tell you straight off is that the best place to buy these new releases is going to be Wargames. Yes, I know they're my sponsor, but check this out, 25% off the recommended retail, and that's not going to be far off of the cost price of these products. So wow, Wargames, as always, there is a link in the description below to check them out. You should definitely check them out. Check the website out. It's www.wargamesuk.co.uk. Place your pre-orders then, 25% off. Awesome. Right, now what am I planning on getting? So the starter set looks awesome. As you probably already know from seeing my trailer on Saturday, I'm not doing Nurgle. Now, if you haven't checked out the trailer, go and check it out, because I put a lot of work into that trailer. I want as many people to see it as I can. So yeah, check it out, share it. So yeah, I'm not doing Nurgle. I don't have Space Marines, I have Space Wolves, but it's a very themed army. I don't think I'm going to need Primaris Marines in there. So I have no real need for that set. Now, if I had a lot of surplus cash, I would love to buy everything. You know, the tape measures, the new dice, the wound counters, the tactical cards, all of the books, and the starter set. I'd love to buy it all, really would. But, you know, even with 25% off, you know, you've got to, you know, get what you can afford, basically. So I've decided not to buy the starter set, even though it's a good investment, even if I just bought it, had the rule book, and sold the rest of the army. Then I've got to think about the fact that I'm going to need 4 of those faction books. I need one for the Imperial one for my Space Wolves, then I'll need the 2 Xenos ones, because I've got obviously Eldar, Dark Eldar, Necrons and Tyranids. And of course I'm going to need the Chaos one as well for my upcoming Chaos army. So that's a reasonable amount of books. Now I have decided I'm not going to buy the Space Marine one, the Space Wolves one, because I'm just going to keep that army on the back burner. So I'm going to buy both the Xenos books and I'm going to buy the Chaos book. So that's 3 books, that's 45 quid minus 25%. So that's a reasonable investment anyway, and then I'll need the £35 big rule book. And I think I could probably stretch to that. I'll probably buy the wound counters. I need to have a look at those though. Are they just D2020s, D25s? I want to have a look at that. If so, I might not buy them. And they've got like a tape measure thing, a new tape measure. I've had good experience from Games Workshop new releases, and a lot of the time they're all quite gimmicky. And I bought that rangefinder laser thing and that was just rubbish. So I probably won't invest too heavily in the gimmicky bits and pieces. I'll have a closer look when they come out, but that's my plan. Anyway, enough of that. We know the date. That's awesome. At the time of recording this video, which is a Friday early morning, you're going to be seeing this on the Monday. No Necron release. Come on, GW! I want to use my Catans! Make them good, make them better, make them superior! Loads of wounds, yes, and also, I don't want no stupid random. I'm gutted, to be honest with you. We've had Orcs, we've had Death Guards, we've had more on Primaris Marines, we've had lots of bits and pieces, but no Necrons. I'm a bit gutted, but I'm saying they're going to save the best till last. Now, by the time this video comes out, you may have already seen the Necron stuff. I have my fingers crossed for the Necron Catan. I have 5 of them altogether, and I really would love to play them all in one army and for them to have a chance. So fingers crossed for the Catan. I'm not going to talk too much about the Necron release until I have all the details. Yeah, okay, let's have a look at some of the more intricate stuff, starting with close combat weapons. What do ninjas like to drink? Water! Howling Banshees, X-Art with mirror swords. How cool is that? It could be back. Yeah, got to get mine painted. So yeah, close combat weapons. They gave us some snippets on that. I have to say, I like what I saw regarding this. So first of all, I think even the playing field for weapon choices, which I really like. So now there's going to be a bit more of a trade-off between strength and AP, which I think will be fantastic, because it will mean there's a lot of different close combat weapons, and we have a lot of unique close combat weapons within our army. Some really cool-looking ones that you don't take. It's like Howling Banshees and the 2 mirror swords. I mean, how cool is that? But we don't take that. We don't take Howling Banshees, but we don't take that. We take the Executioner because of the +2 to strength, etc. So it's great to see a potential even up of the close combat weapons, so we can see some more cool close combat weapons on the table. So yeah, basically, if you want the AP, you don't tend to get the strength, and if you're not so bothered about the AP, you tend to get more strength. So it's going to make it a tougher choice, especially if you don't know what armies you're going to be playing. It hopefully will make making an army list a bit more tactical as well, choosing those right weapons. Now, not only that, the big thing, of course, that we already know is who charges will be striking first. And we're all wondering about how are they going to deal with unwieldy weapons like power fists, for example. And then now they've told us. So if you had a unit, for example, that would normally hit, say, on 3s, your power fist will still be striking at the same time if you charge in, but as opposed to hitting on 3s, it's going to hit on 4s. So they basically made it harder to hit with those unwieldy weapons, but they hit at the same initiative. And I think this is a great solution, actually. It makes your unwieldy weapons a little bit more unreliable, which is a shame in some ways, but it also means that you don't necessarily... basically, it just makes life easier. It makes your combat resolution a little bit easier. You charge in, you strike first, your power weapons hit normally, and then your big heavy weapons are harder to hit, but at least they hit at the same time. So yeah, I think it's a good solution. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. And like I said, with the new stat lines of all these different weapons, you won't necessarily always be taking Power Fist. And actually they indicated that in the Orcs section, where they're saying the Power Claw is still good, but you know, some of those other weapons, the close combat weapons, are actually going to be pretty decent as well. So you may not always just be seeing Power Claws hidden in Orc units, and I think that's going to run through the whole of the armies. And they've also indicated about Imperial Knights. I don't know too much about Imperial Knights because I've only played an Imperial Knight twice, and I don't own one. But now the close combat weapons are going to be an automatic 6 wounds, and that's for every wound. It's going to take 6 wounds, so they're going to be a pretty beast in close combat. I suppose you would expect it. I'm not a huge fan of those big models in games, to be honest with you, but they're here to stay, and they're still looking pretty decent, which is understandable. GW want to sell more of them, so why not make them good? Okay, so let's have a look at the next topic, fortifications. Overlord Beer, can we guess our Bastion out? Stronghold assault rules, excellent. I wonder if there's any news on the defence line. So we had a release section about fortifications and stronghold assault, which, as they describe it, is a mission layered over the core rules. And all of a sudden, when I read that did start the alarm bells ringing that the core rules probably are going to be quite basic and we're not going to have everything in them. So these free rules, they're not exactly free. Anyway, the key thing here was fortifications that they were talking about. I suppose they would like us to play more fortifications. I know a lot of people do play them, especially for narrative games, for campaigns, etc. And I think they're great for that. But what I've seen in the more competitive scene, they're not really used so much, apart from maybe a defence line. And to be fair, that's the only fortification that I've used. I do have a Necron Bastion, believe it or not, the laser cut card one. And as yet, I've not used it. I've not used it as a Bastion, only just as a normal piece of terrain. Now the fortifications seem quite interesting. Just run through the stats. So they're apparently going to be toughness 10. They're going to have at least 12 wounds. I think they were talking about the Fortress of Redemption here, and it's going to have a 3+ save. So they're going to be very difficult to get through, it would seem. I'm very interested to find out how the defence line works, because I use that in some of my army lists. I did start to use it in some of my Necron lists, but I found I didn't really need it because they were just durable enough. But one of my Tyranid lists, particularly the Morlock list, which I'm dying to find out how Morlocks operate, but that uses a defence line, so I'm really looking forward to finding out how that actually works in game. And if the Necron Bastion, if I can start playing that in a game, I think that would be pretty cool. Overall, you know, fortifications, I think it's nice. I think it's great for your campaigns, sort of stories, where you can have a stronghold assault type of mission. So, you know, it's good, interesting to see about that. Fortifications, again, are here to stay, and I'm sure GW would love to sell more. So I'm sure they're going to be pretty decent. Okay, that's it for that topic. Now let's have a look at transports. Come on, guys, come on, get in. All of you. And you, yeah, and you. Come on, everyone. Everyone, jump aboard. Let's go. It's okay, lads. I know we're on our last wound. We're just about to explode, but it doesn't matter. As long as you don't roll a 1. Right, okay, transports. So this is quite an interesting one. Now we can put, I believe, as many units, not just even 2 units, but as many units as the transport can fit. Now, I'm assuming they've mainly done this because independent characters can no longer join units, so it sort of makes sense. Yeah, if you've got the capacity, you could potentially have an independent character in there and 2 separate units, which is really, really interesting to see. Now, I don't know how usable this is going to be because a lot of transports are capacity of 10 or 11 or maybe 12. Now, if Age of Sigmar is anything to go by, as far as I'm aware, I believe most Age of Sigmar units you have to have in 10s. And I'm wondering if 40k is going to be the same. You've got to have 10 in a unit. So it may stop too many shenanigans with multiple units. I'm thinking it's probably, unless it's extreme circumstances, you're probably only going to get a unit and a HQ in a transport. But we will see. That's just my personal thought on that. So disembarking and assault. So it's pretty clear now that we can get our units out of the vehicle before it moves, and then we can act as normally, so we can move, shoot and assault. That's pretty good. I mean, it's harping back to a lot of the old editions, and open top vehicles or assault vehicles, I'm assuming, are going to be able to move, get out and then assault. I would have thought. I mean, I don't know, it's 100% clear on that. I believe they've clarified that with open top vehicles, that you can move. Actually, I believe you can move your full 16 inches, you can still shoot, you guys, get out and you can assault. That's open top. So I assume an assault vehicle, I'd imagine a Land Raider will be able to do exactly the same. And then say a Rhino, probably you have to get your guys out before you move your vehicle if you want to actually assault. And all of that makes sense, and it all sort of seems quite familiar to how we used to run. But the key difference here is your vehicle can also assault. Now we know about this, we've touched upon this, and there's a lot of people with a lot of opinions about this. But yeah, you can get your vehicle, get your guys out, ready to assault, and then your vehicle can assault too. So a lot of people talking about piling with your vehicle first to try and like take up Overwatch. Yeah, okay. I mean, the other option is to pile in your vehicle first, so that if your main guys don't make it into the assault, at least you sort of half tied up the other unit, and the other unit can only get out of the assault and then they can't shoot, or at least most of them if they haven't got a special rule. So there's a lot of tactical abilities from this new rule of a vehicle assaulting. What do I think of this? I've been swayed backwards and forwards whether I like this rule or not, thanks to Commissar Gamza. If you haven't seen his video with the spinning monoliths, it is quite funny if anything else. But yeah, I mean, simplifying the rules so that you haven't, I mean, I don't know about you guys, ramming, we used ramming when it first came out, and then we stopped using it because it didn't really do a great deal. It's just more complicated. You always had to refer to the complicated rules to work out what was going on. So we didn't really use that much. And tank shock, we did use tank shock, but it never seemed to work. It never really seemed to do much, apart from trying to get people of objectives. And then there was always, not an argument, then there was always a like, yeah, well, I think I'm going to be moving this way, and somebody trying to get onto the objective, and then you think, no, you should be moving that way off of the objective. So they're taking, I believe they've taken ramming and tank shock off, and now we can assault with our vehicle. It makes the vehicle more interactive, and of course now vehicles have the weapon skills and the wounds and the attacks and everything. You know, I don't know, vehicles aren't looking quite like vehicles anymore, but it may mean that we're going to see a few more on the table, which is always cool, you know, to see vehicles. Now they have talked about the Star Weaver in particular. Now when they first released rules about vehicles assaulting, it was always, well, they're going to be quite difficult to hit. You know, you're going to be hitting probably on 5s or 6s. Well, the Star Weaver hits on 3s with 3 attacks, which is quite interesting. Now, whether that's because it's an open-top vehicle, or whether it's because it's a vehicle which basically it's assault orientated because of the units that are in there. But either way, that was quite interesting to see that it can hit a little bit better. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see the stats of some of these vehicles. Right, now there was one last thing in this section which I've just seen, and that is if your vehicle explodes, how does that work? Well, now it's very, very simple. You roll the dice, and on a 1 your unit dies. My son is probably quite happy that he doesn't play 40k anymore because he always rolls 1s. And just incidentally on that, I've talked to my son about this new edition of 40k to see if he would be interested in playing again, and he isn't. Not at this stage. He likes other stuff. Anyway, side note. Right, so yeah, that's very interesting, and that's going to put those big new Death Star units. We're not going to see the old Death Star, but anyone who puts a lot of points into a unit that goes into a vehicle that rolls a 1 and dies is going to be very unhappy. I suppose it's a bit like the mishap table. You know, you roll a 1 and you die. It doesn't happen very often, but you bet your life it will happen, and it will happen at a crucial point. Adds a bit of fun. It also potentially takes the risk away, because yes, okay, on a 1 you die, but let's face it, it's only a 1 in 6 chance of that happening, so most of the time you'll probably be safe. And the big strong units are probably not going to like this rule quite so much, but what it does do, it gives those weaker units like witches a much better chance of surviving if their vehicles explodes. And let's face it, their vehicles do explode a lot, so it's a massive plus to Dark Eldar, Orcs, all of those guys that don't have a very good armor save. They've got a much better chance of surviving. So I think that's a great rule, actually. It's going to be a lot of fun. It makes our weaker units more survivable, and it evens up the battlefield a bit. Okay, so next we're going to look at Cities of Death. Cities of Death. I'm in the building, you can't see me. Na 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 na. Right, Cities of Death. Now this is quite an interesting one for me because I have an investment in Cities of Death, a history as such. So I've got the really old Cities of Death Codex rulebook from when I first started playing this game. Now, I never played the Cities of Death missions in there, but I always loved looking through and seeing the buildings, and it always appealed to me. So when they released the last Cities of Death rulebook and all of those new Cities of Death buildings, I jumped straight in. I bought the big Imperial thing. I had like 6 buildings in. We went halves, me and my buddy, on that kit, but I ended up buying a load of more buildings. And I actually spent about a year making my Cities of Death terrain and all these accessories that goes with it, all the barricades, the tank traps, the razor wire, the stratagems, lampposts. I had a lot of fun with that. I really enjoyed it. It was back in the time I wasn't doing as much hobby as I am now, so it probably wouldn't have taken me a year to make if I was doing it now, but at the time it did. And I've had a lot of great games of Cities of Death with my buddy. And what happened was they eventually moved the building rules that we were using in Cities of Death into the main rulebook. And then once that happened, and they introduced basically building rules into the main game, we stopped playing Cities of Death, and the book became a little bit defunct. It was interesting to see because Cities of Death had the special rule where only troops could score the buildings. That was back in a time when anything could score, and it was quite interesting to see only troops score the buildings, and then they brought that back into the main rulebook. So as always, GW tend to recycle and experiment with their rules all over the place. Yeah, one thing which I always wanted to try in Cities of Death but never got around to trying was sewer rats. There's a special rule where you could lay down these little sewers. I've got the little models, but I never got around to actually painting them, and they're back again, so that's great to see. It means I might actually finish doing my little sewer rats and getting some games in of that. Now the most interesting thing about this is the building rules, which not according to the GW release, but according to Frontline Gaming, who place tested the game, these Cities of Death rules, although they're encompassed with it like a sections of Cities of Death, are actually for the whole of the game. So with buildings, if you have a unit of infantry or flying, as they call it, which is basically like jump infantry, in the building, you get a +2 to cover save if you haven't moved, and you get a +1 to cover save if you've moved, which is great. You know, for infantry, that is absolutely awesome. Now they have also indicated that monstrous creatures, I believe in tanks, etc., will have a lot more trouble getting saves. Now GW just says that your model has to be obscured to get the save, so that means no toe in foot, I'm in cover, which is great. I mean, it makes sense. We're playing a visual game, we're playing well, I assume we're still playing you get down a line of sight game, so it makes sense if your model isn't obscured that you don't get save. Now Frontline Gaming took this a little bit more further, and said that walls of buildings you can't actually smash through. Now I think this is great because my Cities of Death buildings were made for the old Cities of Death rules, and in those old rules you couldn't go through walls and buildings, you had to go around. So a lot of my buildings are specifically designed with either a door or no door, which is great. So I'm quite happy to see this rule come back. Now I don't know whether this is just for monstrous creatures or that's for infantry as well, or the infantry still have to walk around. I assume yes, they must do. I think it's better, I think it's more in line with your piece of terrain. I mean, you know, just saying, oh, there's a wall there, I'm just going to walk through it, it just doesn't really make sense to me anyway. I like the idea of walking around. It's going to be a lot more difficult for monstrous creatures in the Cities of Death scenario, in the building scenario, a lot better for infantry. And I think that's overall what's happening. I think they're making infantry and monstrous creatures and tanks all not even, but all with a chance on the table. And that's going to bring me nicely on to the next topic. 3rd edition, 4th edition, 5th edition, 6th, 7th, 8th edition missions. What will they be? Okay, so we're playing on the diagonal, so oh, what's that? 18 inches from this table edge, 25 inches from that table edge. Maybe put a ruler down the middle. Oh no, hold on, that's going to mess up all the terrain. God, how do we deploy? Okay, so missions. So we've had a snippet of some mission scenarios. In particular, a brand new mission called Only War, which I think is their standard mission. Very playable in different types of situations for different types of games, narrative and power level play, etc. I believe it's designed mainly though for like an even match rather than the attacker defender scenario. But they've indicated that this will be the free mission in the free rules, which also indicates that we're not going to have everything in the free rules. Yeah, all we know about that anyway. Yeah, it seems quite interesting. Now, one thing that I did notice, I believe it was a 5-turn mission, fixed 5 turns, and I believe a lot of the Age of Sigmar missions are also 5 turns. So are we going to be seeing that back again, maybe, just like it's a fixed amount of turns? That will be interesting to see. Now, they have indicated match play will also have the 6 Eternal War missions, and we'll have the 6 Maelstrom missions. And if I'm honest with you, I'm not foreseeing them being too much different to what we have. I'll be interested to see the deployment for those missions, because personally I love Dawn of War. the mission. The Hammer and Anvil mission I think is great, but I find it very limiting, especially in match play. I mean, when I went to the War Games tournament, now this isn't a knock on the War Games tournament because it was absolutely awesome, but that Hammer and Anvil mission in that game was a bit of a pain in the bum, because, especially for me, because I was playing my Flayed One army where I was infiltrating loads of units on my opponent's side of the table. So every time I wanted to move them, I had to walk around the table to get there. And that's just because of the deployment type. So I'm not a huge fan of Hammer and Anvil, although it does add a few more tactical variances as such. And then you've got the diagonal thing, which is that's just a pain in the bum just to measure it out. Anyway, that's just my personal preference. So I'm hoping for some better deployment zones, and they have indicated this. We're going to go back to some of the old editions, like 3rd edition and 4th edition, where we're going to have a nice mixture of all sorts of different deployment options for the narrative play, the campaign play, and that is absolutely awesome. And what is great to see is GW taking all of the best bits from all of the years that we've had and putting them into this one codex. That's how it feels to me, which is great from my point of view. I'm sort of almost reminiscing. Oh yes, you know, 4th edition missions, fantastic, and about to play them again. Cities of Death, you know, fantastic. Cities of Death are back. Stratagems. I'm not a huge fan of stratagems, to be honest, but you know, they're back again. So it's great to see a lot of recycled stuff. But also some of the new stuff in there as well, like the Maelstrom missions. And incidentally, they're going to be a bit different. I think they're going to tone them. They're going to make them a bit better somehow. The Maelstrom cards, and they've also indicated there's going to be a stratagem where you can basically swap out the card if you can't achieve it, which I think we all do anyway. So it'd be interesting to see how that folds out for the tournament sort of scene. But yeah, overall, this new book I'm pretty excited for. I think, although it's simplified, it's in by no means dumbed down. I think if I've ever said that this is going to be a dumbed down version of 40k, I'm going to take that back. I don't think it is going to be. I know we've had all these rules, all the snippets coming through, but I think we're going to need to study that book quite a bit. Especially with the different types of play that we're going to have, and I think that is the key thing. If you're just interested in match play, I'm sure you'll be able to read all the match play stuff and get cracking and started straight away. If you're interested in the narrative play only, then I'm sure you can read all that and you can get cracking and have some fun games with that. If you're planning on playing all the different types of missions and scenarios and different types of play, I think this book is going to be quite involved, which is good because I like that too. So overall, I'm very happy with this release. Can't wait to see Necrons though. I do want my Necron release. Hopefully by the time you're watching this, I would have already be here with a big smile on my face, getting ready to record the Necron video. Okay, so that's it from me. That's this week's roundup over. Stay tuned, I'm sure we'll be back next week, and I'm sure by next week we will be talking about Necrons. Thanks for watching.